Hey, good day. I'm coming at you today. I wanted to talk briefly about communication. We're all cooped up in the house with one another. Everybody's got cabin fever. So we kind of want to move towards how we communicate with our family, our friends, our coworkers. It's a rough time in our country, rough time in the world. And it's just something we have never seen before. It's a new stigma. It's a new era. And it's just kind of weird. And just one of those times in life that I've never seen since I've been alive. So I briefly want to talk to you for those who are unaware who I am. I want to introduce myself as Loretta Ann Phillips. I was a practicing doctoral level psychotherapist for 18 years. I went to school for 14 years in clinical forensic psychology, doctoral level. So now I moved into a program dealing more with life coaching and a positive psychology type of theory, where we concentrate mostly on people's strengths and having clients become healthier through their own insights, rather than the therapist or doctor diagnosing a mental illness and going from a disease model type of medical theory. So I own a agency called Breaking the Chains Wellness and Resource Center. We are primarily life coaching. We do offer some pastoral. I do a lot of jury consulting, prison advocacy. I help a lot of people with case management services, specifically Social Security. I mentioned that yesterday in the post I did regarding case management services. So briefly, I want to talk about communication. Because we are all cooped up in the house together, because you're out there and you're not used to being home and the family and it's just getting on your nerves, I want to talk about ways that we can have healthier communication. And one of my niches is relationships and helping people have better, healthier relationships. And my other professional niche is PTSD and trauma and helping people with that. So let's get into communication and how this can help you in the future. The first thing you want to do is make sure that you're both agreeable and pick a spot and decide you want to have this conversation. Sometimes the other person's not ready and they may say, well, I need to get back to you. That's the first thing. The second thing is know what you want to speak about. When you're talking, make sure that you use I statements. I used to tell this to my clients all the time. When you begin to start with you, the defenses go up in the other person because the other person feels like you're blaming them for something. And the bottom line is, own what you feel. I used to come up with this absurd example, and I still do. I don't use it as much. But when people come in and have communication problems in relationships, I always say, so you say that you're unhappy about that. So somebody might think, seeing a murder on TV is a good thing. You might be a sociopath, but I was that absurd about it so they would understand. And then, most people are going to find it very gruesome. So own how you feel, because not everybody's going to feel the same way as you do. And when you use the word you again, the person goes on the defensive and you're just not going to get anywhere, because everything out of that statement after that from the other person communicating back to you is going to be on a very, very defensive model. Be specific about what you're upset about. Okay? Don't hem-haw around. People don't like a hem-haw around or think, oh my God, what are they trying to say to me? You have one thing to say and it takes 2 hours to say it. People are going to not have patience for that. Our minds are not set to be on something that long. Be specific about how you feel. Okay? Don't try to own the other person's feeling or guess how they're feeling. You ask them how they're feeling about that. Don't assume what they're feeling. Clarify. Be specific. Avoid that leads me into avoid misreading somebody. Somebody may be laughing or giggling, and a lot of people do that when they're nervous, and you may misinterpret that as being disrespectful or nasty or just not taking seriously what you're saying. You need to clarify that. People have a hard time speaking about emotions, and when people laugh, it's a defense mechanism to deal with what's going on inside. And so Be careful not to accuse somebody of something that just may be out of nerves or fear, or not the ability to articulate quite the way you think they ought to be articulating. So that's the first thing. Another thing is, please don't pick out negative things in people. That's one of the things that I disliked about providing therapy is I'm sitting there picking on somebody about all their nasty things that they did in the past or what this was going on and how it's still affecting them in the future. That's so debilitating. I think that's why so many people don't do well in therapy sometimes. I think they live with that feeling that they constantly have a disease they can't get rid of. They're constantly living in the past and thinking that they can't move on. That's something about life coaching I value so much, is that we teach people how to move on and live in the present and the future and not kind of concentrating on that path so much. So I really, really love that part of life coaching. On the other side, you be careful as the listener. You need to have that active listening skill. You need to let the other person finish speaking. You guys kind of may need to set some guidelines and some rules before you speak. And you just basically listen to the person. Try not to interrupt. Little cues like, may I speak now? Not, may I speak now? Or say, can I speak now? Are you finished? Very calmly, and if there's a pause specifically, because some people need to think before they speak and they may not be done speaking. So it's nice just to put in a little a question there, or make sure that the person has finished what they're saying. Active listening is 85% of healthy communication. I'm just saying, when you can listen, the person really feels that your heart's in it. Another thing is, if there's a large pause on the phone, if you're communicating through the phone, what I've noticed is you need to give some feedback. Not totally interrupt them, but act like you're listening, little verbal cues like, I understand. I got you. Yep. Those let the person know you're listening too, especially if they're not in front of you and you don't know, you can't see their actions and you can't see their behaviors. So you don't know if they're listening on the other end. As far as you know, they could be sitting there doing a crossword puzzle. You have no idea. So those little cues and little verbal cues help people know that you're listening and you're being attentive. A lot of the times, what I do is I'll paraphrase or I'll say something back to let people know I'm getting you. I understand what's happening. So this is what's bothering you and this is how you're feeling. People really respond well to that. It may not be, you may not agree with what the person is feeling, but they're allowed to feel the way they want to feel. That's the bottom line. People feel what they feel, and you can't take that from them, just like they can't take from you the way you feel. And sometimes that's why everybody says we're going to agree to disagree, because we don't have a right to tell somebody you're not allowed to feel that way. And they don't have the right to do it with us. So that's so important part of communication is validation. Whether you agree or not, you want to make sure that the person that you're speaking to is validated, that they know that you're listening, and you may not agree with it, but you're listening and you're honoring that time and that space with them at that moment. I also think a very positive thing to do is point out positive things about that person. When you're having a conversation with someone, you say, listen, you have always been upbeat. You've always had a lot of energy. You've always told me positive things, and I think you're a pretty awesome person. So could you tell me what's happening? Point out positives about people. We spend so much time every day picking out negatives. I swear it's so annoying. I'm sitting there and a person can do 100% positive or 99.9% positive, and somebody will pick out that 0.1% that person isn't doing right, and it's so annoying. It's like, oh gee, I saved the world, but oops, I broke this window when I was doing it, and that's the only thing the person sees. It's just a terrible feeling. So when you're communicating with anybody in a relationship, like I said, family, friends, coworkers, it is so important, even sometimes acquaintances. I do it with my clients. I do it with the attorneys and the state reps and the congressmen I work with. I use these steps and I listen. And I allow myself to be taught something. I look at it as wanting to learn what the other person is like, because I don't know. How do I know? I'm not them. So if I allow myself to absorb their knowledge, not only do I grow insight into what is happening with them and what they're feeling, I also grow inside with knowledge. Everybody has thoughts that are just outstandingly beautiful. And if you just sit and be calm and listen to people, you will learn so much. That is part of communication. And this is why a lot of relationships break down, is because we get on the defensive, or we hold resentments, or we feel like we're not being appreciated enough or taken granted of. And you can own that. You can say, I feel like I'm being taken for granted. Just don't say, well, you're taking me for granted, because that puts the person on a defense. Those I statements are so important when you're communicating with somebody. I used to highlight that, still to highlight it every day to people who come to me for relationship issues and relationship coaching and things like that. So building a communication skill set takes time and practice. I have all kinds of paperwork on it. I have homework assignment. I have all kinds of stuff that can help you better communication skills. But that's just a little bit about, I wanted to talk about how we're getting on each other's nerves, and we might need to communicate with one another about how we can live in the same household. You know, everybody's little quirks are probably getting on your nerves right now. So I wanted to talk about that. So I want you all to remember to stay safe during this time. Please keep your energy up. I said today earlier, work out, work out, work out. It helps with depression and anxiety. It gets those nerves out. And also, eat healthy. Take care of yourself, walk in hope, never give up. There's never a problem that we can't come up with a solution about. We can work it out, we can do it, and we can maybe not fix it, but we can get you through it. I hope you all have a great night. Stay safe.